everyone. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce you to my guest, Yane Yoo. Hi, Yane. How are you?
Hi, doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for joining me today.
Very excited and privileged and honored to be here.
Oh, no, the honor is mine. So for those of you that are from the Atlanta area and you don't know Yane, it is your misfortune because because Yane is somebody that I grew up, I guess most of my middle school and high school years in East Cobb. Yane is actually my mentor, and on a faith level, I would use the word discipleship relationship, right? She's my discipler for a lot of years. As far as my faith goes, I think she's invested so many hours and so many years into my life that I, at the time, like most of us, don't realize the investment until the fruits that are bared from it later. And for me, that is the testament of my relationship with you, Yane. So I'm here to say, super thankful for everything that you've done for me in my adolescence.
Thanks, but
No, and then
yeah.
I was like, I know you hate all of this right now because, but before we talk about why you're here in your career, I wanted to kind of say and let people know too, the amount of investment that went into my life during that time. So I was thinking about us talking tonight, and there's a very vivid situation where I remember it was you were teaching us on a Sunday, a Bible study class, and you kept asking us who are you? I don't know if you know. Do you remember this?
I remember.
You do?
Yeah.
Gosh, it was so long ago. So and I feel like it's relevant kind of to what we're talking about, just who we are and our identity and what it is that we're called to and our passions. But at that time, you kept asking us as high school, freshmen in high school, right? Who are you, right? And I'm like, I'm a daughter. My name is Blair. I'm a friend. And the point of what you were saying was where do you find your identity? And is it in things that you do well? That your accomplishments, okay, you're a daughter, but what does that mean? And I remember all of us just being what is her point here? We know who we are, but then turns out we didn't, because, the point of your question was, where do you find your true identity? Where do you find contentment in? And that is, it should be, if you are a follower of Jesus, in Jesus himself. And so, all that to say, I remember, okay? I remember all of it. So thank you. Thank you. It really has formed and shaped who I am today. So, yes.
Praise God.
Yeah.
I remember preparing for that one.
Yes, that's so crazy that I feel I thought for sure she's not going to remember because it was so long ago and it just, but anyways, so yes. But okay, without further ado, Yane, why are you here? You're here to tell me about your career and something that I actually know nothing about, because I feel we always talk about life, whether it's at the time when I was growing up, my relationships with people or boys or whatever, but we never talked about I never asked you about your job. So I'm excited to learn more about you and your story today. So yeah, could you tell me what it is you do?
So, yep, right now I am what you would call a finance integration manager. And if I had to summarize for you what that means, I would say it seems like this title is something that it could differ depending on where you go and how they interpret it to be. But right now, I solve a lot of problems for my company, and specifically, I'm focused on the digital tools, the digital tools and apps.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So, but you use the word financial, so that makes me think of money and numbers and stuff. So is a lot of the problems usually dealing with the money and the budgeting and stuff?
So, yeah, that's a great question. And it actually, it truly, when I say that it's around digital tools and digital apps, it's truly around digital tools and digital apps. But when I say it's finance, it's because I am in the finance function of my
Okay.
company.
What does that mean? Is that just like a department or
Mhm, mhm.
okay,
So think
okay.
about like a function, like a department, and then you can think of like IT as another department.
Okay.
But so I am actually sitting in the finance group, but my focus and my area is on how we bring the digital tools, everything right now. We're in an era of just innovation and creation. And so
Okay,
everybody's
yes.
trying to make apps. I mean, you can go
Yes.
onto iTunes and make apps. So in that same way, there's so many different companies that are trying to create apps to help businesses. And there are so many apps that my job is to bring some is to help is to help make sense of all of these apps, what's relevant and how are we supposed to use them and how do we use them to solve problems or
Well, okay, so okay, you're gonna have to take me back a little bit. So for your company, so you're um problem solving with these apps or you're trying to figure out which apps are best for the company?
I am problem solving with the apps that are available within the company,
Okay,
right?
okay. Okay, so
Yeah.
this company is to not be named, but it is a multinational beverage company. And I laugh because like I don't I like um don't know what to call it, but that's what it is. It's a multinational beverage company that you work for, and then um so I kind of want to like know the details. So like, could you give me an example of how you're using the app, or is that not allowed?
Yeah, no, I can give you so like for instance, like we have like in different companies and different corporations, like especially if you're global, right? And we are global, there everybody has to find a way to communicate with one another,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
So usually have a
mhm,
chatting tool, right?
mhm,
So you have Google Hangouts where you can chat or Google Chat. And similarly, depending on which platform a company is using,
mhm.
a company can have a Google platform or they can have a Microsoft platform, but there's a communication tool.
Sure.
So there's a communication tool, right? So like Google Chats, there's also Microsoft Teams, which is pretty popular. Skype
Mhm.
is another thing that business Skype people had. And so, for instance, um, I'm like trying to simplify how it is, but as we have grown and just the entire world has grown in the area of digital tools and become more advanced, some of the chatting capabilities have also become advanced in their
Mhm.
capabilities.
Mhm.
And so, for instance, our company has a tool that is far beyond, it's trying to replace emails, actually, for instance. But we have a tool that we're using that's supposed to replace emails. Well, people don't know that it's supposed to replace emails, so they don't know how to use it. A lot of people
Okay.
aren't they're using it as a chat tool, but they're
Okay.
not thinking about like the different organizations that it was intended to be created with. Does that
Okay.
make
No,
sense?
it does because our church uses something similar. I feel like something similar. We use Slack.
Mhm.
And is that kind of the idea? Because like I
Yep.
remember Slack is like an app that essentially because I'm a children's pastor, and so
Mhm.
I use Slack and to send out messages instead of emails, and that was kind
Yep.
of the whole point, like just
Yes.
one app to do that. So is
Yes.
that kind of the same concept then?
Yes.
Okay, but
Yes.
then like what is your role in that? Like why does that matter for you?
Why? That's a good question too. And it matters because there are so right now, like for instance, there's information overload. I mean, if you think about the internet as well, I mean, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, you have emails, you have text messages, then you have WhatsApp, you have
Yes.
Kakao,
Yes.
and you have so many different ways to receive messages. And similarly, inside a company, especially a global company, right? There are so many different platforms, there's so many
Right.
different groups,
Right.
there's so many people that you're targeting, and it's a challenge.
Oh
So
man.
that's like an example of a challenge of how do we manage the communications, because
Okay.
you have like multiple, apps or platforms that someone can get, like an email. You can have, like, if you had Slack, if you have Microsoft Teams or Google Hangouts, then usually there's some sort of other communication that's like a blast or announcement,
Uh-huh.
which has its own separate app. And so and then which community, like which group do you belong to, and
Uh-huh.
which communications are you getting or not getting, and
Okay.
how are you getting it? It's it's a jungle.
Right. Okay. So, like, for you, like, there's a problem given. I know the problems are all different, probably, but like, how
Mhm.
do you even uh go about, like, what does it look like to start coming up with the solution?
Part of a lot of my problem solving right now is it's really complex because it's dealing with not only and also like being the global aspect, the multinational aspect. I have to make sure I'm connecting with everybody around the world in my finance function, but I also need to connect with everyone in the digital workplace, right? In the
Mm,
digital workplace, for instance, or like our IT, the group that handles and owns the apps, right? Then I need to connect with everyone to understand, okay, how are you guys leveraging the apps? And then also with like strategizing on what is the best way for us to do communications or for us to manage everything.
okay. So, are
It,
you one singular person that figures this out, or is there a team of people?
so that's another great question, which is that right now I am an individual person, like in my global finance function that needs to, like, it was designed for us to be a networked community, for me to count and rely 100% on my team members, but also everybody around the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
so that's why I am like right now one person show, but I connect with like everyone
Sure.
around the world in all the different groups
So,
to be
like,
able to
how
target
has
my.
the pandemic affected that type of work atmosphere?
It's definitely caused some great challenges with everybody trying to go remote, even for something as basic as communication.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's been challenging. You're talking about just in the work situation, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's been challenging to roll everything out. I mean, for a global company, you know, before the pandemic, not everybody was having to leverage VPN, if you know what VPN is. Do you know
I
what
don't know. What
VPN
is
is?
that? What is that?
VPN stands for virtual private network.
Oh, right.
So
Okay, okay.
so a virtual private network, which means that when you're inside the company, like they have everything locked down so nobody can enter the premises, the virtual premises, right? But if you're sitting outside of that company, like, and we are all are at home, so we need to log in and pretend like we're sitting in the office to be able to access all the tools, the emails, everything
Oh,
as if we were in the
wow.
office. So that becomes like really technical. And I mean, before they only had like 10%, maybe, I don't know, a really small number of people who actually needed VPN. But for
Mhm.
instance, when the pandemic happens and all of a sudden their servers are overloaded.
Mm,
And so
right,
it's kind
right,
of, I
right.
think they were seeing something similar in the schools where nobody could get on to do any homework for the kids
That's right.
because everybody was trying to log onto the apps at the same times and they just weren't prepared. So it's been really interesting to get everyone's habits to change. And like what's really interesting in my group, the focus is not only on solving problems but managing change. And that's one of the hardest things, because how do you change people, how do you
Right,
change like
right.
their behaviors? And so my current role and my current team is really tasked with the change management of a lot of things.
I see. Wow. So, okay, I don't know. This might sound like a really silly and maybe even slightly ignorant question, but um, being a global multinational company, that's been around for a little while now. um, like, things like digital apps and even just like going digital and things like that is
Mhm.
it's a new thing. It's a new age, right? But then, like, I would imagine there's a lot of people from an older age at the company, Like even just shifting gears like that, is that
Mhm.
challenging in itself?
Very. It's really
Right?
hard. Yeah,
Okay.
it's because it's hard for anyone to change, right? So,
Right.
and then you have, then you have people who, I mean, also my company is a really great company. So most people, it's hard to get in. So once you're in, a lot of people like to stay as
Right.
long as
Right.
they can, and
Uh,
so it's hard because they're not used to change, and especially like digitizing
right.
everything that
Right.
used to be done on hand. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's been a big.
Man. But they obviously feel the need for it since they've given you this particular job too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a hard thing to manage because then we start getting to other conversations about the culture,
Mm.
right?
Mhm,
Like, is
mhm.
someone having to change because they feel the pressure to, or because they want to,
Oh man.
right? And then that then affects like everybody, like how they're feeling, because if it's pressure, like nobody wants to do something under pressure, when you have to do it and then you
Right.
have to do it well. So that's hard. That's a hard piece
Yes.
to also manage. And how do you encourage behavior so that you want people to learn, right? And
Mhm,
that they don't feel the pressure to have to change,
mhm,
but
mhm.
that's a part of the challenges.
For you in
Is-
particular?
I mean, just I think I would guess like any company right now that
Okay, yeah.
is trying to digitize, but also
Yes.
like with for us as well, it's
Yes.
a challenge because especially we're not a Google, we're not a
Mhm,
Facebook, we're
mhm.
not somebody that was just recently created after the internet boom.
Right,
Like we've
right.
been around for a minute.
Yes. Yes.
And so I mean we started in the dinosaur age. Like we were around.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no, absolutely. That's crazy. Okay, so could you I know I'm sure it looks different day to day just because you are a problem solver, but could you tell me like maybe what a typical day might look like for you? Is it different?
mm,
It's so different, huh?
yeah, it is really different.
Sorry.
And
She's like
I'll
looking at me right now like, I don't know."
And like one thing I have to also say is, Blair, the way that you knew me back in the day, I
Uh-huh.
haven't really changed too much.
You said
I
you
was like,
haven't really changed that much?
I have not changed. So like, on top of my day job, I'm involved in other things at work.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
so I have, so the other thing I'm involved in at work is I'm a part of our Global Data Analytics Advisory Council. And so those are that's sponsored by executive leaders, and then I'm also a part of like this center of excellence that we're trying to stand up, and I'm also a part of like the Asian American Business Resource Group on
Amazing.
leadership with that as well. So
Amazing.
on top of my day job, I have these other extracurricular activities or
Okay,
groups
so,
that
like, let's
I'm
take a
part of.
minute here, and, also forgot to mention that she's actually a mom of 3 and a and a wife, which are also things that are important for her, I know, and when she says that she hasn't changed much, you guys, is, like, literally, she always was doing this much all of the time when I was younger too, and was able to manage everything, in my opinion, from where I stood. I don't know how it is now. I'm sure it's super challenging even now, more so. I would feel like with a family only because that's something I can relate to. However, yeah, like how do you manage that? Like what do you just kind of yeah, tell me. You have to tell me your
Yeah,
secret.
no, so and I think as I talk and share about this, that
Uh-huh.
I have to acknowledge that we are all like unique individual creations that God has created, and He created us. He created us equally in that, but He created us uniquely.
Mhm.
And so, as I share, like how am I doing this all, and I think part of that is that I've always just loved to be really active
Mm.
and not requiring as much sleep, just over the years. And
You
somebody who
guys, I just have to I'm sorry, just sidebar, like Yane emailed me back and I saw the timestamp. It was like 4 a.m. And I'm like, this does not say 4 a.m. And then you were like, yes, I don't sleep much. I'm like, no, that means you don't sleep at all. But anyways, okay. So you don't require that much sleep in order to get all the things you need to do to get done.
Yeah. And
But
I think
you do everything well.
uh, I do everything okay. And I have like a really amazing husband and amazing like family, not just family and husband, but just I really have an amazing support
Yes.
around me to help me to do everything that I do well. And like as I commit myself to different things that I know require extra time, then I try to involve my family in those decisions because
Yeah,
it becomes a family decision.
right.
And then at work, also, since I was a child, I could my best focus time where I studied, always studied late into the night, even in high school. And somebody was like, "Surely you did not in high school." But for me, yes, I was that kid that I was very active in clubs and then in hanging out. I mean, I love people, so I love to spend time with people. So after school, I will go hang out, do whatever until like 10 o'clock, and then hit the books at 10 o'clock till like 2 or 3 o'clock.
That's crazy.
You know, and similarly now I'm just the same, except my additional time is filled with other, church or leadership, different things as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
awesome.
also at work, I think the way that I describe my day is most of my days are meetings. That's how I kind of organize my day.
Mm,
Um, from 8 to 5, I'm available for a lot of meetings. And I probably don't get as much done just between pings and meetings and coming here and there. It's hard to have focused time. But
mm,
for me, like that time where I'm most productive is at night after the kids are down, after my husband is, we're all kind of quiet. And then it's just nothing but silence for me. That is when I have time to think without being interrupted and to really knock things out
mm.
and like really use my mind like really, really well. And
Yeah.
that's when I'm most productive. Like that's when
Yeah,
I get things done,
that's awesome. That's really great. So if you're like Yane, you could work for a
which
multinational beverage company one day.
no, 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 no.
Successful. No, but
And
um
I have to say most people are not like me. So I am,
yes,
I think,
you are a unicorn in itself in my opinion. But so I do want to ask you something, and it's something that you mentioned in preparation for us chatting tonight. You said you really do like love what you're doing right now currently and you're passionate about it. Could you tell me more of your heart on this particular job that you're titled with at this moment?
yeah. I think, my current job right now, I think I like to do work that impacts and influence people
Mm,
and that helps people. And like the work that I'm doing, it's I think it's going to help. Hopefully it's going to be helping people. And
mm,
like for me, and when I shared with you like that this is a work that I'm really passionate about, I feel like God, He gave me like this desire and this passion for like digital everything in the digital space.
mm, mm.
And I think that kind of goes back to like when I tell you about not only just this job, just my entire career, all of it comes from like the passion that God gave me for the work that I'm doing from the very beginning.
Wow.
Um, so if I can divert, then I can tell you more and
Yes,
tell you
yes,
kind of
please. I
how
would
I
like to know
started.
more. I'd like you to take us back to the very beginning.
Yeah, this is I'm going to take you back 20 years,
Yes, sounds
20
good.
years to college
I'm
when I was in
excited.
college. So in college, I was trying to figure out. I have to tell you a little bit of backstory, because I think it's relevant. I think it's helpful to understand. But in short, I got accepted into a college that I thought like for sure I didn't even have like the credentials to get in. And there was just no way. And I think it must have been like a teacher recommendation letter. Anyway, I got accepted. And I mean, it was like pretty amazing because like someone like me didn't even fit into the stats, right? Like there was no way anyone like me could have gotten accepted into the school. So you can imagine that as a high school student, how proud I was that, man, like I'm like not even on the charts, but I got accepted into the school. So I wanted to go to that school because,
Okay.
like, again, there was nobody like me that would have ever got like, I think the lady told me there were only 3 exceptions in the past.
Oh
And
my gosh,
so
what is the school?
well, it's not like anything like Harvard or anything like that, but it was just a private school that had some pretty high credentials, called Colgate in New York,
Okay.
in
Yes, I
Hamilton,
know
New York.
Colgate.
And so for me, I guess I wasn't really shooting for any difficult schools, but my cousin thought I should shoot higher, and I didn't have the qualifications, so I didn't apply. And so when I did get in, it was like there was, of course, I was really proud, and I wanted
Yes.
to go because I'm like, Mom, do you see this? I mean, not only did I get accepted, but do you see like the dean of admissions wrote me a personal letter.
That's
And
crazy.
do you see, Mom, like the assistant dean also wrote me a handwritten personal letter on top of the template. Like it wasn't just congratulations. It was like, I am looking forward to meeting A, B, and C about you and in the fall. See you then. Right.
Wow.
So I, felt pretty special. And I was like, God must have made the way for me. And when I couldn't go there, I was really brokenhearted.
Mm.
And anyway, Hope Scholarship won. So I was stayed in state at Georgia. And then still I was very proud and thought I'm too good for Georgia back in the day. And as I started, I, was like, okay, well, if I have to come here, then I'm just going to go and get double majors because I was already, with all my AP credits. I mean, I was already half a semester or more ahead.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
And so with that, I ended up trying to do a double major in accounting and MIS. MIS, Management Information Systems,
Oh,
was
wow.
like the college course to take back in the day.
I
And
see.
then accounting, I just heard was just a really basic thing that it's good for everyone to take. And so as I was doing this and taking accounting, it was really hard. But it was like in that same season that I guess God really humbled me as I started taking my master's courses and was like, girl, you thought you were all that, but no, you're not. And if you're going to do this well, you're going to have to study hard.
I
And
remember this.
do you remember this?
A
I was
little bit,
studying pretty
yeah.
hard and I did well,
Mhm.
but I was like not sleeping back then, trying to like get my A's or whatnot. And I
Right.
was,
The only
I
reason I
can't,
remember is because there was a small time I feel like you weren't MIA, it's just you weren't around as much, I felt like. And I remember you saying it was because things had gotten really hard at school.
yeah,
But okay, continue.
it
Yes.
was. And so basically like in my pride, I decided that, all right, God humbled me and I can't do this. But I really love programming things because that's pretty cool. But it
Mm.
took me too much time. And accounting, I mean, accounting is a love hate thing. So you either love it or you hate it. And you know what? I mean, I didn't love it, but even though after spending 7 hours on a problem and I solved it, I knew for sure I had this right and I loved it. you know? And so as I started like doing this and being like, you know what? I spent like 7 hours on this problem or whatever it was, but you know what? There, without a shadow of a doubt, is right. I don't even need to look at, I just knew that it was right. And as I started like pouring and investing into like the schoolwork, I began to love accounting. And like,
Wow.
who loves accounting enough to talk about it for like 2 hours? Uh, Only someone that God could have given a love like for accounting. And that's exactly what he did for me
Wow.
college. And so I would just talk about how wonderful and amazing accounting was, so much so that other people went and decided, I'm going to major in accounting as well.
Okay, so like I have to ask you and interrupt for a second. Like, okay, I think I know what accounting is, but maybe I don't know what an accountant is. So what does an accountant do? Like other than my
So,
taxes?
yeah. So actually, so accounting itself, you could have multiple different sessions, but
Okay.
accounting is more or less like how one records different transactions
Okay.
or
Okay.
handles like I don't it's a very broad term actually. It's a broad term. So
Mhm.
most people think of a tax accountant
Yes,
because
that's what I
that's
think
what they
of.
think of, right?
Right.
But then there's also an auditor, right?
Okay.
And then there's also an audit information systems like
Okay.
focus. right?
Okay.
And audit information systems, you can think if I said management information systems,
Uh-huh.
MIS, that's kind of like the programming and uh, like focusing with a business on like your different apps or creation. And that's also another broad terminology, but just think about technology and
Okay.
accounting, right?
Okay, okay.
And then think about tax, which is it's another like discipline, and then think about auditing.
Okay.
So there's three different focus areas really that one can study in.
Uh-huh.
And again, the accounting information systems is just think about technology and accounting would be the best way to describe that.
Okay.
Then for taxes, think about just regular, everyone has to get taxed. What are the different rules? So it's very
Mm,
heavily rules based. If you
I
like
see.
rules, lots and lots and lots of rules about individual corporation, then that is the way for you to go.
Okay.
And then if you're like me and you love people and you love traveling or you love like working in groups, then auditing, like that's how I kind of decided my career is I
I
wanted to
see.
focus on audit. But audit is, so to explain audit, can I explain audit for people who don't
Please,
know?
please do. I want to know because I don't know.
So like when I teach like my kids about my job in their classes, what I say is, everywhere you go, there's a rule. In this class, there's a rule. You have classroom rules, you have school hallway rules. In your church, you have like the Bible. I mean, everything has rules, right? And similarly, like even when you're driving on the road, there are rules of the road. And you always have somebody to come and enforce those rules. And
Mm,
if you're thinking about something that everybody knows, like for instance, who is enforcing traffic rules? Who's doing
cops,
that? Cops.
police. Yeah.
Yeah, police. And then you have other rules like if you murder somebody or whatever, and who kind of is the verdict for kind of doing managing that. There's always somebody, right?
Right, right.
So
Like,
as you can kind of understand that similarly with finance and accounting rules, there are rules to be followed,
I see.
right? And so whether even if you work for a company, there are company rules to follow, you know,
Uh-huh,
and
uh-huh.
then there's accounting rules. And so what an auditor is, when I tell people, when I want to teach people what an auditor is, think about an auditor as somebody who's looking to see if you're following the rules or not. That's the
Oh.
basic thing. So if you think about it, oh God, my parents are audited for their taxes. Like they're checking to see, did you follow the rules or not? And if you
Yeah,
did
I
not,
mean, I will say there is like this negative connotation that I have in my head of an auditor,
yeah,
but I guess it's because they're the ones that makes sense. Like
looking
they're
over
the
your
ones
shoulder.
seeing if you're doing it correctly, and there's
Yes.
consequence if you don't, if you get caught
Yes,
by an auditor. Okay,
it
I
is. That
gotcha. I
that's why
gotcha.
it's a negative thing because they're always looking to see if you're following the rules or not.
Right, right. Okay.
So very simply put,
So you loved it. You love it.
I have to admit that for me, auditing, I really went because of the way of working.
What does
I
that mean?
love people. I love people. I
Oh.
love people. I love to travel. And when you're in tax,
Uh-huh.
I mean, think about somebody who's reviewing tax returns,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. They're just in an
like
office.
in an office by yourself with a whole bunch of papers.
Right, right.
Like that wasn't what I was into. I was looking forward not to being in an office by myself. I was looking forward to working in a team setting.
Mm,
And so
okay.
for me, like, and also traveling. So if you think about a big company, like if you think about I don't know, should I go into audit? Should I share a little bit more about audit? Is that okay? Because
Yeah,
it's relevant to my career,
that's great. Yeah.
right? To give people an idea. But to teaching a little bit more about the audit space, it's like every company that has a stock, right? The stock market, every
Yes.
company that's out there, like they want people to buy stock in their company, right?
Sure.
And why do they want people to buy stock? Because when you buy stock, you're basically paying the company money, right?
Uh-huh.
And then you get ownership of that
Right.
company, but
Mhm.
you're only going to pay and buy stock for a company that performs well.
Yes.
Why would you ever want to like buy stock for a company that's losing money every year,
Of course.
right? It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
So that means that every company, they have an objective, they have an agenda. They want to make sure that whatever they put out there, that they are killing it. They are making lots of money because they want everyone to buy their stock. If
Mm,
you think about the publicly traded market, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible
I
for,
understand it.
you know, So basically every company wants to make themselves look as good as possible, which is why you need auditors to go and audit them to make sure that whatever they're saying that they're making is reasonable.
Interesting.
Because every company wants to every company wants to say, oh, I made a sale on 12/31 of like $5 billion.
Uh-huh.
And then the next year be like, the customers, they did not like it. We want to return that by February, right? And then when they report for a 12/31, then they look like they made $5 billion more than they actually did, but it
Uh-huh.
was a fake sale.
Oh.
And then they just reverse and be like, hey, the customer didn't like it. They can make themselves look good.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's kind of like you can make whatever story you want to tell, you can make that happen. And so that's why that's why the auditors go out to do the testing to make sure that if they say they made $5 billion, let's see $5 billion worth of cash come in
Oh,
the
interesting.
door.
So, okay, so like you go there to see, and is this like a paper trail, or what are you looking at?
So it's looking at, so see, you would be a great auditor because you're asking all these questions, but you would look at their bank account, right?
Okay.
You would look at their bank statement. You would make sure that the customers who they said was going to pay them, that they actually collected the cash on them, right? You could look at everything. You could look at maybe they had a sale, but then the customer didn't pay them yet. So then you
So
would look
there's
to
really no
see,
money.
well, yeah, there's no money, but still they made the sale, so they're owed money, so that should count, right?
Right, right.
So then it's like, well, how long have they not received the money for? You
Oh.
know, and is that reasonable? Like, if it was only 5 days later, then that makes sense. But if it was like 275 days later and you still didn't collect the cash, then what's going on here? And did you really make a sale?
Mm.
So
You're
these are
like a
questions.
detective.
Yeah,
That's kind
yeah.
of fun.
It is kind of fun, but it's not fun to be audited. But it's interesting. Some of it can be like redundant, but if you think about like a huge company, like Delta or Walmart or Costco or Sam's, and think about how much that they have, then it's not like you working on to validate that they really have like however many billions of dollars of cash. Like, you
Mm.
need an entire team of people to go in there and make sure everything that they're saying is true.
Wow.
And that is why you have to work in a team setting for an audit. You don't
Okay.
work just by one person,
I see. I see.
which is
Okay.
why that's what drove me to choose audit as like my career choice.
Oh, wow. So, okay, sorry, just to backtrack just a little bit, as you're talking, I was just wondering, so have you always enjoyed like numbers and things like that, like even when you're younger?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
I'm your mathematics and chemistry girl, and biology and world history. I'm horrible. I'm horrible. I'm not the best at I'm not the best at I was never good at biology
Okay,
or
okay.
anything.
I see. So you've always kind of enjoyed the numbers then.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what if you don't like numbers? Would you still suggest somebody to consider?
I mean, I guess the question is do they like, yeah, even if you don't like numbers,
Uh-huh.
I think numbers is a part of it, but it's not everything. As
Mhm.
long as you can add and subtract,
Sure.
you
Hmm.
don't need to do calculus,
Okay, okay.
right? So, like for accounting, it's just like, if you say that if you sold $50 worth or $100 worth and you only collected 50,
Mm,
then how much are you owed?
right.
$50. So
$50.
as
Yes.
long as you can do that kind of math, then I would say audit is a safe choice. It's fine.
Oh, interesting. Man, you really sold it on me. I'm like,
I'm
that sounds like so much fun.
it is pretty, like, some of it is like if you work for a big company and you're like testing collections of actual cash, I mean, that can get probably boring the way that they used to do it, but
Uh-huh.
also with all of the digital tools that are going on,
Uh-huh.
like these methods are changing right now, and it's super
Oh,
amazing and super fun and super exciting. And so
wow,
when
wow.
I tell you about, like, audit and like my current job right now, the like tying the whole loop back together, I started out with a double major, declaring a double major, and I decided, I just, God humbled me and I can only choose one, because I only want to choose one and do one well. And
Mm,
I chose accounting.
mm.
And within accounting, I decided to focus on audit, because, I shared it was really driven by working in teams, but
Mhm,
also by the travel, because you
mhm.
have to travel to headquarters and just different places around, the world or other states, or, and the company pays for it. So honestly, like, that is what led it. But also, like, what's been really exciting for me is most of my career has been around auditing, but then in the last 3 years, I had the opportunity to step into like another managerial role
Mm.
focused on bringing in like just this digital tools and focusing on data. So basically, it's kind of like a roundabout taking me back to the beginning of college when I wanted to do a
Great.
double major. And
Yeah.
I liked the programming, and it gave me really an opportunity to, like, okay, now I've been doing like auditing and accounting and controls for like all these years, and now I have this opportunity to learn and get back into this other space. And that's what I've done for the last 3 years. So right now I feel like I'm able to like do both and
Wow.
enjoy it.
Because I thank you for tying that back all in because I was wondering, like, how does an auditor become like this digital manager that you're like, so even in that transition, when they offered it to you, were you confused or were you like, oh, this seems right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
were more.
yeah, I'm excited because, like, auditing is auditing is auditing is auditing.
Yeah.
Like, the work of an auditor, I mean, it's hard for it to really change. It is changing in the profession right now. So
Uh-huh.
that's a whole other story because of the digital capabilities. So
Okay.
it was really exciting, but the main purpose and objective, it does not change, right?
Uh-huh.
So for me, like, the opportunity when it arose for me was, did I answer your question? It was just exciting. I don't
Yeah, yeah. That
I
was
don't
my
know what the
question.
question was.
That was my
Okay.
question. Yes.
Did it make
I was
sense?
just wondering if you were like um I am curious, like, why were you tapped for this job? Like, kind of
I think I think it's
transition
because I'm not like a typical. I'm
person.
not sure. But I'm not sure if it's because they thought that I would be able to learn everything really quickly,
Ah,
or what. But
okay, okay.
I did learn a lot. I learned a lot more than I really needed to. Well, it all really helped me, but I'm like, people go and study, like, get majors for some of the things I learned in like 3 years.
Okay,
So, and like
okay,
really in 1.5 years, like,
okay.
people went and got specific majors on like architecture, like IT architecture, infrastructure, data infrastructure, IT. They went and got like degrees for like computer science, programming, like all these tools. And I had to learn it really quickly to be able to make some decisions for my group on our way forward and what is the strategy for what we will do, how we will do it, what makes the most sense. I know I'm probably just vomiting right now.
No, 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 no. I am just processing what you said. But so I mean, like for you then, um it, like you mentioned before, it did come back full circle because it's you do enjoy it. Like the information system's part of it. And so it's easy for you in that sense because you like it.
Mhm.
Nice. Okay, so and then my next question was going to be like you already answered it kind of, but so there are like people that study for this specific type of job role. Okay.
Mhm. I think
Okay.
there are like, you know, there are people who are like study architecture and they
Mhm.
become solution architects,
Ah.
right? IT solution architects. There are people who study, they get like masters in data science and they
Uh-huh.
become like data scientists, or people who study industrial engineering and become, but
Right,
there are a
right,
lot of
right.
people who study, but like in general, what my observation is, and like for the young children, or not children, but the young teenagers who are listening, what's going to be really interesting is that the world is rapidly changing right now.
Yes.
And with my experience just like the auditing profession, and also like the learnings I've had in the last 3 years with technology, um, like analytics was something that everybody has always trying to do, like getting data driven insights.
Yes,
but
yes.
um but what is changing right now is it's going to become the norm, and it's been really really hard for people to find success in it
Mm,
because they have only gone to school and studied the one thing. And
right.
actually, if I think about it, actually, I was having a conversation with my husband about like in translating and the analogy being to like doctors, right? But sometimes like you might have a doctor who has specialized in like lungs, for instance, right?
Mhm, mhm.
But if you have somebody is coming and having lung problems and it's it's really driven by some other part of the body where something is going wrong, but the lung doctor doesn't see any problems with the lung. If they don't know, if they're not talking to other doctors to understand how the entire body is like functioning and they only specialize in the one thing,
Mm.
their conclusion is
If
it's going to
nothing's
be
wrong.
it's you're not going to have a really great conclusion
Right.
unless and being able to have like a network and leveraging everybody
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
for everything that you do in the future is going to really be key.
Right. And so you're saying you have been able to create this network within the company that you work for now.
Well, I have, but like it's going to be key for everybody in
Yeah,
every job in every company, I think, in the
that's
future.
cool. So are you doing actual like coding yourself?
Depends. Yeah, sometimes. Like
Like on like
depends on what. Like for me, I can't say that like for instance, like people will say, "Oh, I do like Python or I can do SQL." And like for me, because I didn't actually do some coding, if I needed to, I could learn. I could probably do some really basic SQL queries, but the tools that I've been using, and the reason why I'm saying this is that because the technology is going to be so key and they know these people, they know people like me do not know how to code, so they are being brilliant and coming up with tools that I can click and drag that have coding behind it, that
right.
I can
I've heard
really
this
like make
before. Yes.
pictures and
Yes.
like tell it what to do. So
Yes.
like I would not say I'm like proficient at some of that, but then like the specific coding, it's more like functional languages
Uh-huh.
would be like there's something called regular expressions, which is really cool,
Okay.
amazing.
I'll take your
And
word
it's
for it.
basically text patterns. It's the ability to look for text
I
patterns.
see. Okay. Okay.
And then like DAX is something that I've been doing a lot, Power BI.
Okay,
It's
this is just like over my head, but I'm just gonna take your word for it. But like, but you're talking about like these programs where you can just drop things in and stuff. So like, um, you're saying that you are creating digital platforms for people using these programs.
I'm like my role is to make sense of everything
Okay.
for
Okay.
our entire function. There's just a lot of tools, a lot of apps, and my job is to be able to like bring everything together.
And make it
Give
easier.
make it my job is to make everybody's life easier with all of these tools and apps. And there's so many of them, and my that's my job right now.
Man, that seems like something I can get behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, like making life easier for everybody else.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
well, you've talked about a lot of things that you really enjoy about your job, but now I have to ask you, like, what don't you like about your job? Is there
um
anything? Any challenges?
no, there's not anything. There's a lot of challenges, but like
Um,
not like there's challenges like how do there's how do you know who to talk to when, and there's so many people and I work in such a large company,
mhm,
to know like
yeah.
everybody's specific area of expertise, but there's no really challenges or things that I really dislike about
Well,
my job.
that's fantastic.
I really love my job,
Man, that's so
and
cool.
like all the people that I work with are absolutely brilliant,
Hmm.
brilliant, brilliant, smart, amazing, wonderful, normal people.
So can
Oh,
I ask you, I don't want to assume what you're going to say, but like being a woman working in such a large corporation and as an auditor and also in this managerial role that you're doing right now, like have you ever faced challenges as an Asian American woman in the workplace? No. Praise
no,
God.
I've not. Um, yeah, I haven't.
That's
I mean, it's
awesome. I think
like
that
we
says a lot about your company though too, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. That's really great.
I feel like I have had so much sponsorship
Mm,
from leaders since I joined. Well, not exactly from the get-go, but after my first like year, maybe 2 years,
mm.
I've had so much support and sponsors and so many executive sponsors as well. I
That's
feel
amazing.
very fortunate and
Yeah,
blessed.
that's amazing.
And
But at the same time, I'm kind of like, if you work that hard, how are you not going to get support from the people around you? Everybody work hard. So work hard. Um, well, that's really great. Well, I am so thankful for all of the information that you gave us today and your transparency. Was there anything else that like I missed that maybe you wanted to share more about your job?
um no, but I think just like my own advice though for everyone that's trying to figure out their job is try and figure yourself out. And it'll go back to the question that you introduced the session with, which is who are you,
Mm,
right? What are you driven by?
mm,
And if you can identify the things that you are most passionate about, not only the things that you are most passionate about, but if you can identify and understand yourself, get real with yourself
yeah.
and understand like the areas of gifting that you have, whether you believe in God or not, like all of us are created so uniquely and wonderfully. And if you can identify like your areas of giftings, your talents, and marry that together with your passion and figure out from there where you want to go, or put those two together and see where that ends and helps you to land, then I think that that is my advice that I would give and share. And for me, those areas, like for me, I feel like an area for me of like gifting or, would be like with people. Like
Yeah.
I love people. I love being able to talk and communicate with like just people is I feel like it's a special area for me. And then like the passion areas, I guess, yeah, 20 years ago it was accounting. And then the whole digital thing right now, the technology, right? Um, and that's kind of how like I am where I am. And it's, I wouldn't go for like a title, don't go for the money, just figure out where like your passions and your giftings aligned and then go from there. And it's better to like love your job. So because if you love your job, then everything else, I feel like you kind of marry those, everything will just come
Yeah.
together
Yeah.
in its due course. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, and I think part of me desiring to start a platform like this where career professionals can come and share their stories is exactly like everything you shared today. Like, for me, say I love people and I also like numbers, but I never knew, right, that like an auditor was a thing where both of those things could align, And I feel like, yeah, like I hope that people hear this story and can hear that, yes, like because honestly I would have never imagined that's the marriage of the two would be the perfect job for you. But um I hope people that are listening right now know that this is not the only opportunity for some two things to come together and make it work for a career that you love and you love your job. So again, thank you so much, Jane, for today. I really appreciate your time, especially with the craziness of your life. But thank you so much. I know things are crazy, but if there is somebody that maybe is interested to learn more about the digital world or auditing in itself, would you be okay with me connecting you?
definitely I'm passionate about empowering younger people too.
Yes, I know. This I
So
know. This I already know. But yeah, so guys, you heard it here. Yane would be happy to talk with you if you have any more questions about what we talked about today. And if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to reach out, DM us through social media, or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Bye.